Hey,
Hello.
how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You sound good on your mic.
Thank you. I would hope for the cost of this thing, it should. It's always the fun thing of spending money on gear where you're like, is it really going to be worth it? Like, I actually just bought, got to think of preference behind me. So I just got this, and I have not bought an actual head. I've been putting it off because then you're kind of, instead of having like a profiler type thing, you're then stuck with having to dial in your own tones and then buy pedals and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, it's so expensive to have to buy all that stuff. And then really determining, like, you know, doing your shopping to be like, okay, is this actually the amp that I order, the head that I want? Is it going to create all the tones I want out of it? And I've spent the last I've had it for about 2 weeks. So I spent the last like week trying to really dial in a nice distorted tone that I like. Mm-hmm. And drove my wife nuts because she's like, it all sounds the same. And I'm like, but it doesn't, because like the mids are kind of scooped out of this one. This one's a little more, you know, with the gain turned up a little bit more. This one's got more presence. And then she's like, it all sounds the same to me. And I was like, I know, it's just noise. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, those are nice heads, so I'm sure you can get a great tone from that.
Yes, absolutely.
Is this a guitar kind of podcast?
No, I don't typically. I don't typically talk. I do talk about the instrumentation and you know, music and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, being a musician myself, a bad one at that. But it's still a thing of like. Typically, it's just a fun conversation. I think the last one, you know, obviously with the Whitesnake thing, you know, we talked a little bit about that record, you know, and being in the band, and I loved your David Coverdale impression. I think it's probably one of the best I've heard.
That's funny. That's funny. Can you hear me okay, right, through my laptop?
Yeah, can hear you just fine.
Good.
So we'll get going because I know I only got you for 30 minutes.
Yeah. We can go a little bit over.
Yeah.
I have another one. Yeah, go ahead.
So I have the pleasure of talking to Reb Beach, who's most known for being the guitarist of Winger and Whitesnake. But you know what? Today, we're here to talk about his upcoming solo record, A View from the Inside, which is coming out November 6th via Frontiers Music. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, John. I'm doing great. I just gave a bunch of guitar lessons. And it was really fun. It's always fun. It's always something interesting. I just had a girl in Australia who played classical guitar for me for an hour, which was awesome. Wow. She paid me to do that, and she was really good.
I think that's kind of the crazy thing about now is, you know, I have talked to a few different musicians, and, you know, like with YouTube and getting to see so many people all across the world, you're getting to see so many phenomenal musicians. And, you know, some of the people are like, I'm glad I'm like, you know, 10, 20, 30 years into a career, because I would look at some of these people like, I'm fucking done. I can't do it. Don't have the time or the chops really to keep up with some of these people that are coming out now. But, you know, first off, you know, speaking away from that, I want to say congrats on finishing this record, because, you know, we talked about a year ago, and at that point you were still kind of working on it, weren't sure in what capacity, when it was going to be coming out or anything. So in addition to you know, working with Kip at the time when we were talking for the new upcoming Winger release, what has been your process over the last year or so of getting these songs done?
Well, it was just kind of a pet project of mine. The way it started is it was 1993, and Winger kind of was shot down in flames with every other 80s band. And I was like, what am I going to do now? I'll be like a Joe Satriani kind of dude, you know, kind of like a fusion guy, and do instrumental stuff. This way I don't have to worry about a lead singer or lyrics, and I can go out there, it'll be my band, and do, you know, guitar tours like G3 and stuff like that. That was the plan. So I shopped my demos. I made demos, and I shopped them around, and I couldn't get it signed. So then I put it up on my website as the Fusion demos, and they sold like hotcakes. I couldn't believe it. And everyone, all the comments were like, my favorite thing you've ever done is the Fusion demos. So it made me think, well, geez, I should make an album, a real album, just on my own. So it was just like a pet project at home in my garage whenever I had free time, which, you know, I'm never home, but whenever I was, it was like, you know, when they show like housewives would make jelly, like, you know, in the Midwest and stuff, you know, they just make jelly in their free time, and then pretty soon they've got cases of jelly with nothing to do with it. Well, you know, with this record, it was just my little thing that I would do to relax me, and little by little. So it took a very long time, Yet I finally was able to release it because of COVID. I was asking Kip when COVID hit, what the heck am I going to do? And he said, well, what did you ever do with that Fusion stuff? And I said, it's sitting on my hard drive. It's been done for like a year. He said, why don't you release it? And so this is why it's coming out.
So obviously you know, touching on the fact that you had, you know, quote unquote solo material before, how long have some of these songs been in the process of being worked on?
Well, Cutting Loose is a song that I get asked about all the time. What's the first song on your instructional video from 1989? And I would say it's nameless. It doesn't have a name, but the name of the video is Cutting Loose. So one day I was like, why not just call it Cutting Loose? And I decided to re-record that for this album because the original recording sounds like crap. Then there's Black Magic, same thing. I wrote that in 1987. I think that's the first. It's the second Fusion song I ever wrote in 1987. 1986, I wrote Little Robots, which is the second song on the record, and that's my favorite song on the record. Black Magic, I was giving a lesson a few months ago to a guy in Japan, and I said, oh, that's so cool, you want to learn Black Magic. You know, how do you know that song? He said, what, are you kidding? Everybody in Japan knows that song. I said, why does everybody in Japan know that song? He said, because the announcers use it for the baseball games.
Oh, wow.
And it's constant. Every single sporting event, it's always used. And I'm like, really? That thing sounds like crap. It's like a little SR-16 drum machine. I did it on an 8-track cassette recorder. And so I went back and looked at my statements that I thought were all just Winger statements. But no, a ton of money for years I've been getting for Black Magic, and I had no idea about it, you know?
That was going to be my question is, wouldn't your statements at least prove that? But I guess absolutely right.
Yeah, but I didn't ever look at all those. There's millions of, songs and stuff. And so, I looked at it and I was like, oh, my God, there's Black Magic, and that's pretty good money every statement period for Black Magic. And so, so I redid that. That's the first song on the album, and I redid it because that sounds like terrible. So hopefully the announcers in Japan will see that there's a new version with better sounds. And then, through the years, I would write other ones. It got all the way up to Attack of the Massive, which was last year, and The Way Home. I forgot that I needed a song for Japan. They need another song to give the Japanese people incentive to want to buy the Japanese version,
right?
More expensive rather than the American version. So I wrote The Way Home, like a year ago or whatever. So that was the last one I wrote.
It's interesting, because it's kind of, in listening to this record, and this honestly shouldn't surprise me, given how prolific your career is with all the different stuff you have done, even doing a score for a Sega video game way back in the day. But it's, a song like Aurora Borealis, kind of caught me by surprise initially because, here come, you're kind of doing a tappy, lead kind of playing. And then here comes this kind of piano melody that it's not that it doesn't fit, it just catches you off guard because that's not what you would assume is coming to accompany what you're playing. And then you're like, oh. And I think it was in that moment that I was like, okay, so you're really kind of bringing a lot of different sounds and styles out for this record. So when putting a song like this together, since I don't have the liner notes for the record to see who's playing on this, was this something that you completely built from the ground up using, recording, beats on or drums on a, whatever plugin or whatever you prefer to use? Or are you actually collaborating with actual musicians and you're like, hey, I'm thinking something like this, here's the tempo, da-da-da-da-da, this long, and then just kind of being surprised by what you're getting as well? No.
I played the piano part, but I didn't play it on the record. I was going to play it on the record, and then we was on tour with Whitesnake, and this guy knew a guy who had a piano in his church. So we went to the church and mic'd up the piano and just recorded it with his laptop. And so that's Michele Lupe from Whitesnake playing piano on that. And it's a little bit choppy sounding because I wrote it in a really weird key for piano, and when I played it, I just pushed transpose on the keyboard, so it transposed it to all the white keys, which is a lot easier. But Michele had to play it in these really weird keys, so it sounds a little bit choppy. But no. Yeah, I play the keyboards, and I started with that kind of Irish riff that I had that starts the thing. I had that, and I was like, ooh, if I play some piano underneath that, it'll sound really cool. And it ended up being this Irish jig. And so I was like, I needed a name, and I Googled, Irish jig, and I came up with Finnegan's Wake. And it was just the worst name ever. So I asked Rod Morgenstein in the van on the way to a Winger gig, will you listen to this and tell me what the name, can you name this? It needs a better name. So he listened to it, he thought for a minute, and he said, Aurora Borealis. And I said, well, I like that name. It has nothing to do with how this song makes me feel, but it's better than Finnegan's Wake, and it's an instrumental song. I can call it whatever I want. I can call it Frank's Pizza. It's
kind of speaking to some of the eclectic instrumentation on this, I love the inclusion of the banjo at the end of Hawk Dance. I'm safe to assume I see a ukulele behind you. Is it safe to assume that you are on the banjo?
No, it's me on that ukulele behind me.
Oh, that's not a banjo?
It's not a banjo. It's actually
No. I'm saying on the Hawk Dance. Is that you playing the banjo on Hawk Dance?
No, it's me playing the. I'm grabbing it here. It's me playing the Sig fiddle.
I was gonna say, is that like a cigar box fiddle?
It's a cigar box with strings on it that isn't in tune, but it really sounds really good. It needs new strings.
Totally fooled me. I thought that was a banjo.
It kind of sounds that way. I doubled it with an acoustic too, and Kip hates that part a lot.
To me, that was like, I almost kind of was like, I'll take like another 2 minutes of wherever this is gonna go, because I really enjoyed it, because between the the setup that you're doing with the chords you're playing on the electric, I think you have like a palm muted riff, and then you're kind of playing them out, and then you have the cigar fiddle thing, and then the acoustic, and then so you have like a blend of like 4 different stringed instruments playing, and kind of you're replacing that bass line that's kind of throughout, that's kind of going. And so to me, I was like, oh, I kind of like where this is going. It's just smooth. It's just a really fucking smooth sound and a vibe at the end. So I kind of really enjoyed that. But that's interesting. I totally thought that was a banjo.
That's funny. Thank you so much for listening to my record. I can't tell you how happy that makes me feel. I've done 10 interviews for this already, and everyone just wants to talk about Whitesnake and Winger, and which is fine.
We already did that.
Yeah, that's true. It's just that some of the people didn't even listen to the record, and I know that instrumental albums kind of turn people off. They don't sell well typically. It was kind of hard to get a record deal, but I tried to make this album totally listenable to fans of all kinds of music. It's not, and like you said, it's not your typical shredder guy album, and that's exactly what I didn't want. I didn't want, like, all right, just wailing, he's shredding beginning, he's shredding in the middle, and he's shredding at the end. Then there's another shredding song. That's not what I'm looking for. I wanted just different kinds of music to tantalize the listener and not get bored. I have solos. There's keyboard solos. There's all kinds of different jams, different flavors. I just wanted it to be an interesting album to listen to. And the other thing is, it's not like it's not jazz fusion. There's a jazz player would listen to this and go, well, this isn't a jazz guitarist. Obviously, this is a rock guitar player. It's all mostly pentatonic stuff, It's very listenable because it's all inside music. There's no weird change. It's not an Alan Holdsworth album,
Well, I think the thing that was kind of interesting about it to me is, even throughout, like you said, there's a lot of different styles and genres covered. But, I'm kind of wondering, in the recording of this and kind of pulling maybe pieces that you've been working on over the last, 30, 40 years, right? 80, 90, 2000, yeah, almost 40 years now. Jesus Christ.
31.
I was gonna say that's the shit part is I'm getting older now. I'm like the '80s. That was only, and I'm like, no, that's a lot further back. Like that's where I was born, and I'm 36. So, shit, we're almost at 40 years. But yeah, just wondering, was there something maybe that you were working on for this record, musical style that maybe didn't make the record because wasn't a cohesive part of the record as a whole and the vibe that you were trying to go for, like a style or a genre that you were playing around in?
No, I don't go that far out. Like I don't want a country song. I hated "Hot Dog" by Led Zeppelin. Like I don't want a song on there that just doesn't belong on the record. I think, I've never had that happen where if something is sounding terrible to me, I won't even give it more than 20 minutes. It's already gone. You can tell right away if something's cool or not. It all starts with a guitar lick, and that is the way it is in everything that I've done. It all comes down to me when we first write a song with Winger. It all comes down to me when we first write a song with Black Swan. We start with the guitar riff, and the same thing with this album. I've got to have either a guitar riff or a keyboard riff that's cool. It's just one section. You need one cool section to build off of. So what is it? Is it a verse, a chorus, a pre-chorus? So then it's like Legos. You just kind of puzzle it together until you're done.
I have to say, I think my favorite track off this record is, and I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, Infinito?
Infinito 1122.
Okay. Yeah, that... I gotta say,
that's your favorite? That's my least favorite on the
record. Man, so here's why, though. So, hold on, my stupid headphones popped up Siri.
Okay. I hear you.
Okay, but I was going to say the thing for me is it's I have to go into work and it's still dark and I have to drive on the highway. So to me, like, you're doing 80, got that song going, and you're like, yeah, this is kind of a undeniable cool factor to that song to me. And honestly, that opening riff, I feel like I could hear it on a Whitesnake or a Winger record. Like I feel like maybe that was the bones of a B-side, and it was just kind of like I got this riff. I don't know. So just kind of wondering where did the idea for that one come from?
Well, that's a good question. And so let's see if I've got a guitar that's in tune here. So the thing about that was I've seen people on YouTube. Trying to. Which is really a great honor that someone has heard the song already and kind of tried to play it, and they're thinking it's just ECD. And I would never write that. That's stupid. That's not a good lick. The reason that I even wrote the whole song is because I figured these chords out. That it's just one finger on the second fret of the guitar, and all the rest of the strings are open. And at any given time in this riff, there's only one finger on the fretboard. Right? And then you just move one finger up to the third fret on the A string. And now you just put one finger on the third fret on the B string. And it's these open chords. And it's just this weird sound. And if you put the bass, I was like, wow, now it just needs a cool bass riff, like do-ga-do-ga-do-do, and then we had a song, right there. Like that's a whole song.
Yeah,
that's what inspired that tune.
I just love because I don't want to say the album as a whole is very upbeat, but I feel like that one kind of has a little bit of a darker tone to it, kind of a little sinister, and the guitar tone itself just kind of is a little bit different than you're sort of hearing, like especially those just big monster chords. And I was like, yeah, there's just something about this I fucking like.
Well, I wanted to release Black Magic as the first single, but the record company said no, understandably, because Black Magic was released 31 years ago on a Guitar World compilation record, so it's old news. So there's only a couple of other songs that are kind of rocking, and that's one of them. So they picked that one.
No, I really do. It's kind of interesting, in doing this for a little over 4 years now. It's always funny when I get a record before it comes out, and I'm like, oh, I really like this record, and someone will be like, that was my least favorite. I'm always like, all right.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Something that in talking about Bad Magic, as you're saying that, obviously it's an older song, and so you're redoing it to update it. But even when doing it, I kind of wondered, because it's the only thing on the record that has any quote-unquote vocals. So...
What? David Coverdale?
What was that?
That's David Coverdale.
Is it?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so he took up all your guest vocal or guest musician budget, I guess, then, right? Is that why he's the only one?
No, I was sitting in the room with him. I said, David, I need you to come in the studio and just say Black Magic. So we went in the studio, and I said, okay, I'll count you in. 1, so I'll count to 5, and on 6, you say it. So I went 1, 2, 3, and Black Magic. I'm like, no, David. I want you to do it on 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, Black Magic. I'm like, okay. So we're just going to use the one you just did, and that's what we did. It took about 60 seconds to do it. Yeah, and his voice is so amazing. Black Magic. It's awesome. The whole band stops, and he says that.
It was just one of those where I was kind of like, what made you think to put that in there?
Well, that's a good question. We play it live, and I think we started like stopping as the band and just yelling out Black Magic at that point, because people weren't really sure what to expect, because we do that.
Oh, were
song.
they clapping, thinking
No,
it was over?
It's the Reb Beach project, and so we'd start with this instrumental, and there's no vocal, and so the people would kind of be like, wow, is it an instrumental band? So we'd stop and go, Black Magic! And then like, all right, yeah! Like people would like, wow, what he said, but it's cool.
Yeah, I just always, as you were saying that, I almost envision people doing that preemptive clap because they think the song's done. Because you stop, and then they don't, if they're not aware of it, and they would be like, there's still more.
No. It's actually cool when you're playing it live. It's cool to stop real quick and scream something out. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll have David Coverdale do that, and that would be perfect. That's
awesome. I didn't even, again, don't have the liner notes, so there's things like that I don't even know or who it is.
No one knows it's David.
Yeah. Kind of with everything kind of being at a standstill right now due to the pandemic that we're all in currently. Have you found yourself maybe writing more for everything, whether it be for potentially another solo project release or anything else?
Yeah, I wrote 15 ideas for Winger, brought him into Kip, and he said, I like this one's good and this one's good, but I'm not sure. And so we noodled around with him for 10 minutes, and then, it always ends up just not working out, because the way that Winger does it is Kip likes me to come up with the riff. And so, this last time he sat right in front of me and said, all right, play a riff. And I'm like, I can't do it with you staring at me. It's like I'm trying to and so he knows that. And so he walks around the house, and I'll just start playing. I'll start playing riffs. I can play riffs all day long, and I'll do it for probably about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'll come up with something, just whatever. And he'll go, what's that? And I'll say, I don't know. And he'll say, okay, that's something. What is that? I think that could be something. And he'll sit down, and we'll just go from there. Now I forget the question.
Just basically, like, what have you been writing? And if you've been writing in the downtime.
I still have more to say on that. So I came in with 15 ideas, and basically we're not going to use any of them. And guess what? Those are going to be Black Swan, and that's the exact same thing that happened the last time. All of those licks, I brought in 50 ideas to Jeff, and he was like a kid in a candy store, as opposed to Kip Winger, who has this really high bar. Like Kip says that the guitar riff, he doesn't want to know what the next chords are going to be after he's heard the first 2 chords. He doesn't want to know what the next chords are going to be. And on all of my stuff, it's rock stuff, straight ahead rock riffs that, what the next chords are going to be, but that's kind of the beauty of it. It's rock. It's not, too out there. And Kip likes a little bit of out there, but he makes up for it in writing a super pop melody over it. I.E. 17, which is a pretty progressive kind of riff. It's very busy anyway.
Oh yeah.
Not so progressive, but definitely busy. And he likes that challenge to do riffs that are kind of harder to play, but with pop melodies over them. And so I came into Black Swan. We wrote the whole thing in 10 days. because, I had these riffs, and Jeff Pilson is an amazing composer arranger, and just took all my stuff and finished it. I never finish songs. That's my problem. I
always feel like, one of my favorite songs of your guys is actually Headed for a Heartbreak, and I've always said it's just, it doesn't seem like the kind of song that it is. Like, it's got a pretty solid, like, big riff, but, like, you don't feel like it's going to be the song that it is. Like, when you kind of start breaking it down, and the chorus especially, I don't think you typically see coming when it comes, especially given how, like, big of the chorus it is. And I've always thought that was actually one of my favorite songs, and I could never really put my finger on it, but it is kind of funny that you say that, that's Kip's stance, is I kind of want to not know where something's going, and then kind of almost inadvertently flipping it on its head with what he does with it vocally. And I've always thought that song, as I've listened to it and gotten more into music and more into the production and sonics of stuff and figuring things out, it's like, this song just doesn't seem like it should be what it is. Like,
no, that's a typical Kip Winger brilliant song. That you can't argue that song, like, especially as a songwriter, but I can't imagine someone listening to that song and saying, this sucks. Yeah, that Kip wrote that song, and my contribution to that song is this. Hey,
but you know what?
That's all I wrote that part. I think I got.
Hey, but that's the transition, though. That's the transition part.
It's very important. Very.
It
important.
Is. Hey, you know what? As I've learned in learning about publishing and all that kind of stuff and royalty rates, as long as you did that, that's how you earn your publishing. Kind of speaking a little bit to guitar players, you're actually one of the first guitar players I've gotten to talk to since Eddie Van Halen has passed away. I know you were involved, was it about 20 years ago, on a Van Halen tribute album?
Oh, yeah. But that's, you go in and do a session and go out. It's not like Van Halen is overseeing it.
Well, no, but I mean, it's still to a thing like where you've obviously done something where you're paying tribute to Eddie and the band. What did Eddie mean to you as a player, and maybe do you have any stories of seeing them and maybe even meeting him at some point?
Yeah, I've met him a few times. He was always really nice, and when he died, I was in shock for a while, and then I kind of pondered it and was like, well, wait a second. If it wasn't for Eddie Van Halen, let's just think about that he never existed, okay? In a world where Eddie Van Halen never existed, where would I be? And I was like, okay, I wouldn't tap. And so tapping is what made me get the kind of stamp on my forehead as like a shredder guy, and definitely helped Winger. But then would Winger even be around? Because Van Halen was the first glam band, really, that came out. They really popularized it, and so Winger was kind of a glammy band in the videos and stuff, and who knows if we would have had that success. I don't think so without the advent of Van Halen. I certainly would not have been on the cover of the Guitar magazine, which I wanted desperately since I was 16 years old. I don't think I would have had the success that I had without him, and it's very devastating that he's gone. It's just really strange to live in a world without Van Halen,
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that's crazy to me is even thinking about beyond the contributions he had as a player and as a songwriter, more importantly, but just what he's done for, like, the gear side of things, with 5150, with what he's done with, and even some of the, guitars and all that kind of stuff. It's like, he transcended from just being a musician to being kind of in the, gear side of things, which, not everyone always is a part of or kind of has a chance to revolutionize as well. I mean, at least for me being a big metal guy, I don't know many people in the metal realm that aren't using or haven't used at some point a 5150.
Yeah, I never thought about that, honestly. I mean, I never know how much the artists actually have to do with the products that come out, But I mean, Van Halen had all kinds of stuff. Wasn't he with Peavey for a while, and then he was with different companies and stuff. I never thought about that. Well, yeah, I was with Kramer for a little bit. I liked them.
That was my first guitar as a Kramer.
Yeah, I when Winger first hit, I got guitars in my house like every day, and me and the UPS guy became friends. And he's like, Reb, what do you got today? And he'd hang around and watch while I opened it to see what I got, you know. And I ended up going with Ibanez because I liked that one the best, and I sent all the rest back. George Lynch told me I was an idiot for sending the rest back. He said I should have kept them.
Hey, I mean, they're technically free. And they're probably write-offs for them, too, to a certain degree. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Where can everyone find you or the band or whatever else you would like to plug?
Oh, thanks. I'm doing lessons at, I think it's official Reb Beach at gmail.com. And I have a masterclass November 7th that you can find. Just Google Reb Beach Masterclass. And then, that's basically what I'm doing until May. So Kip and I are writing. I'm flying out back to Nashville on the 14th to just finish off the record. So far, the new Winger record is completely epic, and Kip's got this high bar where he wants it to be like the first Boston album, where just every song is just like undeniably good. Yeah. With long jams in it, and super memorable stuff. So that's where we're at, and we've written like, I don't know, 13 songs, but we're only going to use 5 of them so far. So we got to go back to the drawing board until they're all, undeniable. And already I like this album better than the last one.
I mean, if you're going to mention Boston and that's kind of the bar you're setting, then I at least need you to have one really awesome pick scrape. They still have one of my favorite pick scrape tones. Like,
well, you know how he does it, right? Have you seen the video of Tom Schultz?
Doesn't he use a...
No, he built it. It's a machine that he built.
Oh, okay.
That uses tape. You've got to Google it, John.
I will.
It will freak you out. It uses multiple tapes and multiple tape heads. That when he does he makes it go an octave lower with his foot pedal. So it goes and goes like super low. That's why it sounds so amazing, and there's echo all over it. But to see him do it like right up close, it's really something to see. It's very, very easy to find on Google.
Oh man, I'm gonna look that up as soon as we're done. I never knew. I've seen people use. I think the guys on Unearthed might have been joking, but took something like a tool and just ran it down the strings, basically fucking up their strings. But get that one good take.
You love a good pick skew, but it's a long video. You have to go kind of to the middle to find the part where he's doing the pick skews. It's like nothing you've ever heard or seen before, except for when you saw Boston.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and maybe when the next Winger album's out, we'll have you come back on and talk about that.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, John.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you too, bud.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that fucking sucked. Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Coach, what'd you think? Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay, I thought we were going to get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks. But you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. It will result in less listens. You're going to see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're going to see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet. And I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you. Don't use this fucking riff. It sucks. But it's yours.